Welcome to the Pre-Pan Podcast. This is Kilian, and today we have Jeff Jackson. Say hello, Jeff.
Hi, thanks for having me, Kilian.
Jeff leads CorEx. He's doing a fantastic job of that, by the way.
Thank you.
Well,
we try.
You've earned it. You've done something a lot of banking factions haven't been able to do, which is stay open and not scam anybody. So congratulations.
Thanks. I'd like to say, our reputation has been built on years of trust and word of mouth from customers. And it honestly pays to stay on the good side and good graces of our customers. So, I really have to thank our customers, shareholders, and investors for making us the successful group that we are today.
It's very nice of you. So let's get into some questions, shall we?
Sure.
How long have you been playing this game?
Well, Jeff is 43, going on 44. I have been around since the middle of year 7, so I'm coming up on 10 years, and this is my second character.
Have you enjoyed the game thus far?
Of course. I'd like to think that I've had a very full career. I mean, everyone has their ups and downs. I've certainly had, some slow beginnings. It's hard to get into certain industries, and banking, was one. Unfortunately enough, I got into banking prior to the first intergalactic banking clan scandal with Corey Vildress. And after that, the banking industry just tanked, went downhill. I was operating the Colonial Banking Network, and it was marginally successful. We had quite a few competitors back then. These days, no one really has banking services anymore, mainly because of the reputation, the negative reputation that's associated with banking.
Are you trying to have a banking renaissance?
I think we've already have had one.
Well, I mean, in terms of possibly gaining competition in the future. I mean, it's great to be the only bank in town, but sometimes a little friendly competition is good for you.
Oh, I'd welcome any competition. Really. It's hard coming up with new things to entice more people because we already offer so much. I mean, it's to the point where sometimes you can't think of new things to do. And competition, that creates a rivalry, and you come up with exciting new ideas. And quite frankly, I'd love to implement some exciting new things.
Do you have any long-term goals for your business? Or are you just going to hope for more and more people to give you their money?
Well, right now, our long-term goal is to continue on what we do best. We've been praised several times, and typically it's to myself or one of my directors, and actually it happened at this past shareholders meeting. But we're always praised for our high level of customer service and customer satisfaction, and that's what that's what we really strive to do. I founded CorEx with the desire to be one of the most professional, honest, and organized companies in the galaxy, and I think I've met that goal. Right now, we're looking to expand our network of banking and financial services. Like I said, we're trying to pump out something new. And on the manufacturing side of things, we're expanding into some additional production, we call them hubs or terminals, and we're firing up some new factories for the first time with the N1 data card that we just acquired.
Well, that sounds interesting.
Yeah, we'll see how well they do in today's market.
The market is a little bit iffy right now.
Mm-hmm.
That's okay. Do you feel like you've struggled at all with the galactic recession, or do you think people just want to keep their credits safe and sound?
That's That's been one of the main struggles that we've had in banking is people ask, well, why do I need a bank? Why don't I just hold on to my money because I know it's safe with me? Well, in the declining economy, people just hold on to their credits. They don't do anything, and then when something hits the market, they beat someone to hell for the price, um, and it leads to this undercutting battle, and I think that's what hurts the market even more. I mean, these new data cards are great. I think they spice things up, and they definitely increase the variety available to market. And while they do decrease, for instance, the N1 used to be rare, it does decrease that value, but I'd like to think it's for the greater good. It gets more sales out there for data cards. It gets more sales on N1s once they hit 200,000 credits.
It's funny that you kind of bring that up because um, this part didn't get recorded when I was talking to Sel, but he was talking about, in terms of fixing the economy, that they had first thought about, well, we just need to take more credits out of the economy and that'll fix everything. But now, after that didn't work quite as well, um, he was mentioning assets. We need to start taking assets out. So do you think this is part of that, introducing new, well, not new DCs, I guess, but older DCs into the economy and having people produce them and bringing down the cost of things?
Well,
Oh.
you can kind of go both ways with that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like I said, I like building new stuff. It's great. I love new stuff. Who doesn't like new stuff? Um, but it'll bring down the value of rare things. So the M1 went from like 200 million. It's probably going to get down to like 200,000 once it hits the bottom. But I can understand why they try to use more generic data cards to stimulate the economy, but it seems like some of them could have been, um, there could have been some better selections. I mean, I don't really have any suggestions off the top of my head, but I
Like
think
a Bayo or
people,
something?
maybe. But the problem is a lot of people, um, they're not seeing the value of investing in a CP ship because they think it's just going to become a generic data card down the line, when that should not be the thinking. But I can see their logic because several CP ships have become, generics, and ultimately it's going to destroy those values.
But
But
that's usually years down the line. It's not like, here's a CP ship, okay, it's off the market, we're going to make it a DC as of tomorrow.
I'm sure it's very hard to pick for them to pick.
So, do you think, I guess this is just me being hopeful, that with this decrease in value of things like ships, that maybe things of role playing items would go up, or people would be more creative in that aspect of the game?
I see a lot of custom art coming out these days.
Mm-hmm.
I think the art industry is a lot more prevalent than it used to be, and could be because of the declining economy, or maybe people these days are just more creative and everyone has Photoshop. Um,
Well, I think it's partially because there's nothing else to spend their money on, so they might as well get the things that they
mhm.
have customized because
Yeah,
nobody's really
exactly.
selling anything.
Yeah, that's a good point. If you already have 1,000,000 fighters, I guess it's time to start putting some nice pictures on them.
I was reading in the leaders forum that you had made a thread about faction sitters, and I had to laugh a little bit because they are paid very, very well to do nothing. I was looking on the positions vacant thread, and somebody had that their faction sitters only got 1 million less than their actual employees.
Huh.
Yeah, and I thought to myself, I could stand to lose 1 million if I'm just getting, you know, 5 million instead of 6. What difference does that make to me?
Right, and it's examples like that that I don't want to say ruin the economy, but it sort of places limitations on the member base. When people say, well, I can just log in once a week and fly around the galaxy and explore and make 5 million credits, or I can work my butt off in a faction for 6 million credits, guess what they're going to do? That's, I mean, don't get me wrong, that's a killer job. That's a killer job. Imagine getting a job like that in real life. Come into work once a week, sit at your desk and do whatever you want to do. That's a killer gig.
I feel like that's a lot of people's jobs.
Yeah, I'd like to think it's mine, but I haven't made a salary in 2.5 years. Not because I've owned my faction or several factions, because I don't think I need to be paid. I mean, that's just me. I don't pay myself. Some other of my partners have opted out of salaries. Others say, yeah, pay me a salary. I'll put it in my CorEx bank account, and then they earn interest on it. But personally, I don't, well, CorEx doesn't employ sitters. And our logic, I'm sure you read it in the topic, but our logic to simplify it is that we would rather make sure our players are well paid than pay people just for the sake of logging in. We have work to do. We have work to do when it's slow. We have work to do when it's not slow. And having sitters drain our credits is, it's kind of a waste in my opinion. And we don't need sitters, so why employ them anyway?
I don't disagree with you. In fact, I think that overall, it would help gameplay if there were a number of factions that didn't do anything, that mainly had 1 or 2 people actually running the faction, and the rest sitters to just dissolve, if that makes sense. Because then you free up all of these people who, well, if they don't want to work anyway, then it doesn't make any difference, but those who do want to contribute, they can find places that are actually active and, have an have an actual job in a game, because everybody wants to do that.
Well, you come to a game to explore and find out new things, and while being a sitter is prime, it's a prime job for being able to fulfill those dreams or goals. It's like you said, it's kind of draining on the member base. We have people here that could do they could queue up a shipyard or drag some millennium across the galaxy, and because people pay them 5 million credits to do nothing, why would they want to bother for an extra million? And typically what I've seen actually are people offering freelance services that are also sitting. So they'll open up a freelance transportation business and sit in someone else's company just to get the 5 million plus make whatever they're making on their freelance job. I mean, that's a pretty smart tactic, but I don't know. There's a lot of transportation people too out there.
There are a lot of
There's a lot.
transportation people. Something else popped up on the traders forum. I'm just going to talk about it loosely because it could be sensitive to some people. But the whole thing, in-game priorities versus your real-life priorities.
Mm-hmm.
Someone wanted a refund and the leadership wasn't getting back to them quickly because they had things going on, but as other players in the game, you don't always know that. How do you deal with that as a faction leader? Because I know sometimes if it hasn't happened yet, it's bound to happen that someone will be supposed to be doing something and they just don't log in for a while, or you can't get in touch with them or anything like that.
Well, if it's an employee, I give them, a week or so. Maybe I'll shoot them an email. When people go inactive that are working for me, it's not really the end of the world. Of course, it could be bad for business if they're delivering a customer's order and don't log in. But The idea is to have enough people to work as backup. You know, uh, it's the same as if something happened to someone in game. You know, what if someone's assassinated? They need to have a replacement. It's the same thing, really, if someone's unavailable because of out of character reasons. From a leader's perspective, over the last several years, I've allotted certain times of the day, for the game and for, real life. No one is available 24/7. We have multiple time zones, and I have to admit I have not always been available in one capacity or another when needed. But that's why I have a second in command and now a third member on my board of directors. They were brought on board and they're given responsibilities because I know they're capable enough to handle anything that I would be required to handle when I'm not around. I mean,
That brings me to another. Sorry to interrupt you. Another thought that I've had
okay.
about new players in general and how there isn't a lot of room for growth for some of them. So, for example, factions like ours, there isn't really a huge ranking system or anything. There are people in charge, of course, but if people want to do things, there's no reason why they shouldn't be able to. But in some larger factions or governments, a lot of people only get hired if they're friends of somebody. They might not even be totally competent for the job. And then you have new players that join who may be competent, but nobody knows them.
Well, typically I recruit everyone that comes into CorEx. We've had some people request information and have sent in applications and whatnot, but for the most part, I've picked up people from Darkness Messages and brought them on board. And typically, my first question is, what do you want to do? Do you want to go explore the galaxy and find a new system? Do you want to haul materials? Do you want to build starships? Do you want to build cities? What do you want to do? Because we have everything. We do everything you could possibly want to do, except assassinate people.
What if they say, "Oh, great, wondrous leader Jeff, I don't want to do any of those things. In fact, I want to strive to become a member on the board of directors"?
That's a good question. Actually, I've never had that one asked before, to be honest.
Do you think they don't ask because they don't think it's possible, or do you think...
I do think that's why people don't ask. I've actually had one outside inquiry, and that was from Thomas. Other than that, I haven't had anyone ask, can I be on the board of directors outright? And it's not impossible. It's not impossible at all. Adius Morbus, my second in command, he came in as a prospecting engineer. 6 months later, he was promoted to assistant manager of the prospecting department, and then he was promoted to general manager of the industrial department. We had some reorganization, so he went up a level of organization and got promoted 2 ranks or something. And that was the same time that Jarek Tamarin decided to retire. And 2 months later, I had to find a second in command. There are 2 options, and Adius has proven to be, the best option for us. I'm really glad to have him. He's a really wonderful he's a wonderful employee, a wonderful business partner, and a really good friend too. I will say that anything's possible.
Well, it's very encouraging. Thank you, Jeff. Not only was Jeff kind enough to come on our podcast today, but he also gave us a lovely little commercial to play. So here it is.
At CorEx, you're not just a client, you're family, and we treat you like it. With fixed rates so high, you'll be glad you switched. Visit us at corex.us for a better kind of banking.
Thank you, Jeff, for coming on the podcast. It was so nice to interview you.
My pleasure, Kilian. My pleasure.
Thank you, everyone, for listening. Say goodbye, Jeff.
Bye.